All right, we'll call to order the meeting of the Grand Forks Growth Fund Committee. It is Monday, February 26, 2024 at approximately 4:30 p.m. We'll move on to item 1, roll call.
Crary.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Kavami. Wazowski. Here. Weigel.
Here.
Whitney. Wolf.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 2, minutes and the meetings of June 5th, June 26th, August 21st, September 25th, and December 4th, 2023.
I move approval.
Moved by Osowski.
Second.
Second by Holth. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item number 3, lease renewal, LM Wind Power.
I have a conflict of interest. I don't know, do we have to talk about that now, or?
Yeah, you can bring that up now.
Okay. So I'm asking permission to vote.
Okay. So is there
I'll make a motion to allow Mrs. Sowski to vote.
a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor of allowing Ms. Osowski to vote, say aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right, Ms. Osowski will not be voting on this item.
All right. We still have a quorum without Mrs. Sowski, so I will proceed. So what we're here today to discuss is the renewal of the lease for LM Wind Power. As you know, they've been a longtime resident in the industrial park, and their current lease expires the end of March. They're currently leasing about 134,000 square feet in the JDA-owned building at 1550 South 48th Street. That, as you may recall, was originally warehouse space by Amazon, and LM has been there since 2006, I believe, taking over more and more space. With this renewal, we're proposing that they will lease the entire building at this point. And so we have been on 3-year cycles, which is kind of G's maximum lease length that they will authorize. So we're proposing another 3-year renewal that would, as I said, lease the entire building to them. Your staff report kind of has a breakdown of what the current lease terms are versus the proposed. So we're looking at the main warehouse / manufacturing space is currently 134,000 square feet at $4.90 a square foot. That would go up to $6.25 a square foot, which based on discussion with the city assessor, that represents market rate for that type of use, that size of use, and today's market. We also have been renting them a blade storage site. That's basically just unimproved land where they store blades. Currently, that's going for $13.20 a month. That would go up to $16.13 a month. And then the rent on the vacant office space, which is kind of that front section of the building, about 35,000 square feet, that was last used by Amazon as a call center. LM didn't really ask for that, but we offered them at a very attractive rate of $3 a square foot just to get the whole building under their stewardship. And so that would bring in an extra $87.50 a month. Total without, they're still amortizing the cost of fitting up a canteen space that was part of their last renewal. But if you take that canteen fit up amortization out, we're going from a monthly payment today of about $56,000 to a monthly payment of about $80,000. As the other kind of wrinkle in this is a renewal incentive. When this was done 3 years ago, a similar renewal incentive was put in place. At that time, it was, COVID, and they were looking for some cash flow relief just because of a business downturn. Now it's kind of the opposite. They're looking for cash flow relief because they're expanding and trying to really increase their production, both expanding their workforce and expanding their facility. They've got, obviously, the plant that they own, they're putting some pretty substantial improvements in that when market is very good, and they're looking to up their production. So the only other meaningful change from the previous lease is staff is now recommending including a CPI escalator in the lease. That's, as you know, inflation has been kind of a non-issue until lately. The lease has been at $4.90 a square foot since 2009, I believe. And that has always been kind of representing market rate according to the city assessor. Kind of heard some feedback that, boy, that's a long time at one rate. And with inflationary pressures what they are, there's a recommendation that the JDA just include that CPI escalator in leases going forward. The last lease that was approved was EDC's lease over at the Hive, and that did include the CPI escalator. GE is still a little iffy on that term. We're in agreement on everything else, but we hope to have their final say on the CPI clause by JDA time, week from today. So with that, certainly stand for questions. We do have two gentlemen from LM in the audience, Steve Marbeck and Jake Calick. They don't really want to say anything, but they're certainly here if you have questions.
Thank you, Ms. Richards. Questions from the Growth Fund? Mr. Curry?
So is this lease essentially a template of the previous one? So same thing with the renewal options, all those options are still the same. The only difference is obviously expanding space and the CPI, as of right now, CPI, right? Other than that,
Right. And
just
the
want to make sure. So it's not an
draft is-
amendment necessarily, but it is going to be a whole new lease.
Well, there is a draft amendment. It's presented in draft form, kind of at the very end of your long list of attachments. There is a draft, and it's called a first amendment to the lease. Dan Gostad has kind of reviewed what is included in the staff report, and those are all reflected in that draft with the exception of the CPI escalator.
Okay, thank you.
I'm thankful that LM is continuing to invest in our community, so thank you. And I'm supportive of a question for me, and I understand why we'd want to lease out the entire space, and since it's vacant, giving a break on the per square foot. To me, when I look at going from $4.90 to $6.25, I mean, obviously that's a getting to market rate, which makes sense to me. But in the materials that were forwarded to us, it talks about it was a 2.5% increase. So to me, it's bigger than that. We're
Right.
getting to market, so that adjustment is more to get us in line with current market, and I think our materials should be updated.
That 2.5% would be since, and I apologize, that was very unclear in the staff report, but that would be if you applied that rate since since 2014.
Okay.
Which was when it was $4.90 for the first time.
For the first time. So I think just to clarify that that would be a 2.5% adjustment since the last time it was adjusted on an annual basis, and now we're in line with market. I think clarifying that would make sense, and I do think in today's world having some type of CPI language to adjust on an annual basis, I think is fairly common. So those would be my comments.
We would hope that over the 3-year term, inflation will cool down and it will be less of an issue, but I don't have a crystal ball, so all I can do is hope.
Further questions? Ms. Richards, I've got a question. How often do we do the, I'm going to use the wrong term here, but rent forgiveness if somebody renews? Is that something we do with all of our buildings? Is that specific to this building?
As far as I can recall, the first time we did that kind of deferral forgiveness was at the request of LM during their renewal in the COVID era. It seemed to be a model that, for different reasons, worked in this case, and kind of, if it worked 3 years ago, let's try it again. But no, it's certainly not a standard model that we, it's, as we discussed, making a CPI escalator kind of a standard lease term. This is very much an LM incentive piece.
Sounds good. I'm not always opposed to incentives at times, but I don't know that we're at where we're at in 2020 or 2021 with COVID. And so I look at that as, in 2027, the value of the forgiven rent is $279,000. I mean, that's a significant amount of money. However, on the flip side, I do see that if they don't renew, then we're at a different point where we're trying to find somebody to fill that space. And so I don't know if there is something we could do to change that so it's not as big of a hit to the city. It's almost $300,000. Something that might be comparable to both the folks at LM and us. But I just do think that a couple $100,000 is quite a bit.
Well, just to give you a little better context than my staff report did, if we look at the proposed rent, which is about $80,000 a month for 3 years, $2.8 million, 2.9. Back off that $280,000 of forgiveness, assuming they do renew, that puts us at $2.6 million. Today's lease at that 56,000 a square foot generates about $2 million over 3 years. And with that same forgiveness taken out, that puts their payment to the JDA at 1.8. So over the long term, and if you don't, I mean, I'm concerned about having this apples and oranges comparison because we're forgiving just the rent on the manufacturing space, not on anything else. But anyway, if you kind of take it in round numbers, that we're still ahead over the three-year advantage from this lease over the last one is $808,000. We're still ahead, giving the full, 4-month forgiveness, assuming they renew. So, yes, that $280,000 is substantial, but we're still over $800,000 ahead of where we are. And I don't know how interested GE would be in, I mean, everything's subject to negotiation, but we have been talking about this since last July, August, and it's just taken us till now to get to this point. So I understand where you're coming from, just a little context.
Yeah, and I think the thing I worry about is setting some precedent with some of it, right? Is, okay, so we may own, say, how many other buildings?
Well, not as many as.
Not as many anymore, but what happens when somebody else comes and wants the same thing and then points a finger and says, well, they're getting it, why can't I? And so that's what I try to balance in some of the discussion.
I would say, Growth Fund Chair Michael, if I could add. So when I think the balance on this one is that they are going to bring, 100 plus employees to Grand Forks from their other facilities in Europe and maybe in Brazil, from what I heard when I talked to the GE officials. So I think what they're saying is that they're going to invest in our community significantly with bringing workforce here to Grand Forks to produce. And I think that what we have is that we become the center for growth, which is a big deal. And they're going to have a lot of increased costs bringing people to the United States, ramping up their production and making this really their center of excellence, if you will. So I would just keep that in mind, that on their side, when I've been in rooms, they feel like they're investing in Grand Forks in many ways, to include human capital. The other thing I think with this building is, I think you always are concerned about precedent, but really this is a different animal than others. And so I often say this, if somebody wants to bring a manufacturing plant like LM Wind Power is going to bring, we'll certainly treat them differently than others, just because it's so much different than anything else. There's no equivalent we're going to find in Grand Forks. So much so this space that we have here is really set up for LM Wind Power. We're not going to be able to, we could travel the world, and we're probably not going to find anybody that's going to want to fit in this building. So, and I think it's what the city has really shown over the years with Cirrus Aircraft and with LM Wind Power, was we know they have the forces of the market and the ups and downs of the market. And I think our strength has been as a community is that we've valued these corporate clients, and we've been with them not only in the good times, which is easy, but in the tougher times. And I think that's what I think in this case. And because we've gone on so long on this issue, I think we've made a lot of progress on this. And I think between now and the end of the decade, I mean, this is probably the best we've seen with LM Wind Power, and being chosen as the site in the world for growth and expansion is a big deal. And I just want to give you some of that highlights when I've been in rooms with people that, fly in for a day and are excited about Grand Forks and all that we're doing to help support their growth and expansion.
Mr. Curry?
Chair, I totally understand the philosophical argument there, but to Todd's, or to Mr. Phelan's point as well, I view it, the reason that I'm okay with that, the rent forgiveness is because it is viewed as like an investment. If everything was all the same, they were running the same status quo forever, then it's kind of like, well, just kind of slipping that in there just to try to, save some money, but they are planning on bringing, 190, whatever it is, 90 to 100 people. If a different business were to come in and say, we have a new proposition, we're gonna bring 90 people, can get a little help, I think that'd be something that we definitely would entertain, because one of the main tenets of the growth fund or the JDA really is job growth, right? So if it was, again, running the status quo, I would totally agree with that, because then it's just maybe a big corporation, GE, trying to flex their muscles. But I do view it as, that helps alleviate a little of that cash flow burden to get all these people here, get them relocated here, get them working in our community, spending dollars in our community. So, I think that's to agree with you philosophically, but again, in this particular situation, I do view it like the investment, so I would be in favor. Just my 2 cents.
Mr. Wolf?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, as well as, again, they are investing more as we're adjusting to market rate. So for those 2 reasons, I agree with the Chair, your thoughts, but for the reasons that Mr. Crary said, as well as they are additional investment, I'm in favor, and I would make a motion that we approve.
We have a motion by Wolf, second by
Second.
Crary. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item number 4, business park lots. 4.1 is offer on 2825 South 48th Street, and 4.2 is base asking price. Mr. Brooks?
Thank you, Chair Weigel. So what we have before us is, it's for this lot right here. Hopefully you guys can see where my cursor is at there. It's going to be just west of Pro Transport, in between Pro Transport and South 48th Street. The offer before us is for a 4.36 acre lot at the asking price of the $4 a square foot. That price, for those of you who, it's been a while since we've had one before us, but that's that all-in price. It includes specials, tapping fees, et cetera. So that's been in place since, I want to say 2017, I think is the time frame since we had that in place. So that's our offer. The offer is from Kringley Investments LLC. They're out of West Fargo. And the address on the property, 2825 South 48th Street. They're looking for 180 days due diligence period. That's pretty typical. There's usually soil tests and those types of things done on these properties due to the size of the what they're going to do. They're looking at $10,000 earnest money, and as I said, it's an all-in pricing. So specials and utility tapping fees are included. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Wolf?
Thanks. It's exciting. Mr. Brooks, you already answered sort of one of my questions. My question was just around that 180 day due diligence period. Just wondering, looking at the purchase agreement, it says, they've got 180 days, and during that period, they can cancel the purchase agreement for any reason or no reason at all. And I was just wondering, I don't know enough about this to know if that's standard practice. It just kind of seems like they get to basically hold the property for 6 months, right? Well, we can't market it. So is that typical in this situation for that long, where they can cancel it for no reason at all during that period?
Well, we've been all over the place with some of the offers that we've had, and I actually went through and went back and looked at some of them. I didn't look specifically at some of the other due diligence language, but there is going to be tech reports. I'm not worried about those. This is still virgin ground out here. We had other areas where we actually had some fill that was brought in and had some issues. This is not one of those areas. But yeah, that 180 days, it's a long time, but in terms of our sales, the last one that we had, I think we were before you in 22 with the original Northridge piece that was just to the north of here. And that was a 2.81 acres. Previous to that, we did sell both of these in 2020. This is Mid-Continent here, and this one's Pro Transport, just to let you know how often we have folks kind of looking at these pieces. This one is going to be the last of our 4-acre size, 4 to 5, so it is the last of those, so that would tie it up for this year. If we can turn around and, let's say this deal did fall through, we'd still be in the summertime with somebody else potentially looking at it, so. And we are looking at, I guess the next item is that potential increase in price going up to 5.
Ms. Osowski?
I know at one point we talked about some lots, and I don't know if these are the ones where they can't just sit on them. They have to build, correct? They can't like sit on them for resale then later?
Yeah, correct. So, Chairperson Osowski, we did have that discussion. It was on this one.
Okay.
On this lot here, and they did ask for an extension on that. So we can certainly put that language into this one as well. That has not been a conversation up to this point, but we could do that if we'd probably give them till next spring, just due to the lead time on a lot of these and getting materials, et cetera. But if that was something that we wanted to look at, that has not been a conversation so far with the developer, but I don't know if the year timeframe would be good. There is a representative here if you wanted to
Okay. I
ask
guess
him.
I would like to see that, put in there where they have to build on it. And what are they going to build?
Hey guys, Curtis Regan, I'm with Dakota Commercial. Couple quick questions to go back to Mr. Holth's questions. First of all, the 180 days, that's going to work a little bit in your guys' favor as well. You guys are going to want to approve the plans and what they're wanting to do there. So this is, due diligence is what we have in the contract. Maybe it acts more as a feasibility period for them to make sure that they can do what they want there, and for you guys to make sure that you approve of that use as well. Ms. Stelsky, as to your question, sorry, can you recircle, what was your question about? Sorry.
I guess I would like to see in here that you guys have to build and you can't just sit
Yep,
on the
and so
land.
these buyers are fully aware of that, and they would anticipate that clause in the purchase agreement.
Okay, so we can get that added then, or do we
Yep,
have to?
absolutely. This is
Okay.
just a letter of intent that we're working off of right now. I believe Mr. Gosted will draft the purchase agreement after this.
Okay.
That'll be the final
And
contract.
I suppose you can't tell us what they want to put there at this point?
It's Prairie Supply Group is the company. They currently operate in Grand Forks.
Okay.
And they're basically just moving their facility to a new spot. They need a little more room and looking to build new.
Okay, I guess I move approval.
We have a motion by Osowski, second by Holth.
Can I move approval based on that we're going to add that into it?
That
Okay.
Clause.
The clause about that they have to build and can't just sit on it for resale.
Yeah, and that.
We're just approving the LOI. So maybe it'd be
Okay.
to review and approval of the purchase agreement from Mr. Gosted probably
Okay.
would be sufficient, I think.
I still move approval.
It's all going to come back to the JDA anyways. And so I'm assuming we can take a bite at it at that time.
Okay.
So we have a motion approved by Osowski, second by Holth. Further discussion, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. And I believe item 5 is adjournment.
Chair,
Sorry.
the all-in
Base
pricing.
asking price.
Yes. So our all-in pricing, just to give you a little perspective too, in terms of the area that we've originally started with the business park, this has been since 2013. We started with Acme up here on the very north end. That was about an 11 and a half acre roughly sale back in 2013. The FedEx south of that, that was a 13 acre piece. And then after that point is when we really had to decide how to put in the utilities on the remaining piece of that. And I would guess it was certainly some foresight from this committee and the JDA. And I know we have some of the same members around here that helped kind of formulate that. Putting in this infrastructure took some time, but we're paying for 2017 prices of those utilities, which today I don't know if any of us really knew what the escalation was going to be on utility costs, but we're certainly having a lot of that benefit. But at the same time, we're not trying to undercut the market either. So we've certainly heard from quite a few that, where they're at with pricing and trying to stay within the ballpark, I'll say. We don't want to go too high. We haven't wanted to stay too low. And so that's been a lot of the fear. The market really looks to be up closer to 5 now. And that's been some of the conversation. I've even let people know that we're going to be before this group and recommending going to that $5 and all in for the sales on this. We certainly have and are going to recover all of the money that the city's put into that, or the JDA has put into this investment. But really the intent has been to really provide space that was shovel ready as well. And I think we've accomplished that as well. We'll still have about 40 acres, 45 acres roughly available, assuming that previous item does go through. So we're more than halfway done at this point with the remaining pieces. We do have one individual who's still been in conversations with us, and we would look to maybe honor that $4 a square till April, I think is what I wrote in that staff report, to give them the opportunity to maintain at this point. So with that, I'm certainly available to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments, motions? Move approval by Osowski, second by Holt. Further discussion, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
I move adjournment.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Osowski, second by Wolf. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.